I don't deal with that. Yeah, it's right in front of me. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, and children. It's as good as it gets, Ryle.
Hey Lance, turn the volume up.
Give everybody a chance to get a seat. And then, since we're in a house of worship, I think it's appropriate to begin on a note of prayer. Let us be in an attitude of prayer.
John, just a minute. Does everybody have a chair or a seat? Because we have more chairs if need to be.
There's a few more seats over here and there.
Okay.
We're not playing right now.
Can I pray now? Dearest, most holy God, we ask your blessing on this gathering. While it is not a gathering for the specific purpose of worship, every gathering, if gathered correctly, is an act of worship. We ask you to bless this community of faithful. We ask you to bless the communities they represent, and we ask you to bless the Cornwall family. May our time together this afternoon be peaceful, may it be filled with grace, and may it be something that we remember for a long time. All this we ask in your most holy name. Amen. Amen. Well, I had notes. But I didn't bring them.
Bring the indictment.
I have an attorney here.
Yes, the big boss.
We have gathered to honor Bob Cornwall, and Cheryl Cornwall, and Brett Cornwall, and their ministries as a family of leadership in the Troy community, and especially at Central Woodward Christian Church. And we are so happy that all of you were able to come. We are going to have messages from several different people, and I have asked them to try to limit their words to a minute or two each. Otherwise, we'll be all day listening. And we want to make sure that we leave time at the end for Bob to have a brief response. And after that, there'll be some refreshments. So, my name is John McCausland. You may know me, you may not. I happen to be, this year, the president of this congregation. And so the task falls to me to lead this meeting. And so that's why I'm up here and not people who are better at this than me. So you'll just have to deal with it. I wanted to start out with a point of privilege since, again, Bob has been a special friend of mine since 13 years ago when he walked into this building. He has led this congregation. He has been a rock-steady, solid person. He's been a marvelous intellect. He has led this congregation out into the Troy community, out into the metropolitan Detroit community. He has continued to work with the region, which is something, the region meaning the denomination, Disciples of Christ, which is something that this congregation has always done. He has kept up that spirit. I want to especially thank Bob for his commitment in the last year and a half to lead this congregation in the midst of the pandemic. I imagine For Bob, it was a special challenge because just before the pandemic appeared, he had announced to us that he would be retiring, and he would be retiring now. Having made that announcement and then staring in the face of a pandemic, it would have been very easy to take down his tent and say, maybe I'll leave a little earlier. He did not. He made a commitment, and he stayed the course through that time, and he did a terrific job. And so I want to give him thanks for that. Hopefully, in his closing remarks, he will share with you what his plans are. But in the meantime, before we get to that, I would like, I don't have notes, but I do have a list. And on this list, the very first name I have is Representative Padmakupa, who I would ask to come and say a few words about her friend, Bob Cornwall.
Thank you. I hate going first, did I tell you?
I thought it would allow you to sit down and just enjoy.
So I will say I am the state representative, but I am also first and foremost a member of this community. This particular house of worship holds a lot of memories for me because of Dr. Bob Cornwall. So let me just go back to many years ago, more than 13 years ago, when we were still sort of building the plane as we flew it for the Troy area interfaith group. Reverend Charlotte Summers, Reverend Rich Peacock, and so many other members of the community like Amin, who slipped in back because Indians and Pakistanis have, standard time that's a little stretchable. And so Bob came in, he'd already built a biplane out in Lompoc, California. So I latched on and wouldn't let go. And I don't know what he thought of that. But he became the convener of the Troy area interfaith group and had a lot of beautiful suggestions and actions that we took as a result of his heart and his intellectual capacity. Not only was he able to nurture the group, but also my own faith, as we know that when we are friendly and become close to people of other faiths, our own faith deepens. Fast forward a few years, I went to seminary. And in my walks in the morning with Bob, I learned a lot about how to study Gospel of Mark as a Hindu at the Ecumenical Theological Seminary. Not to mention that he lent me a lot of books, so I could spend a lot of money. And more recently, in my current role, when I was having those 100 conversations they say that you should have when you run for office, one of the first people that I spoke to was Bob, because he and Reverend Peacock and Reverend Summers all knew I said I would never run for anything. But as I discussed it with him, not only did he encourage me, he stood by my side as an ally, much as he does for so many other causes. Whether we're in the middle of Pride Month, we are also a few days away from Juneteenth. His understanding of these issues and how much, as people of faith, we need to stand tall to protect all. And boy, did he protect me, not only by walking with me, but it was almost inevitable that every time we would go door knocking together in 2018, it would rain. And he had the best umbrella and stood there with it over my head and made sure that I didn't get wet and also that I didn't face a lot of difficulties at the doors. I am sorry to see him leave this congregation, but I know that he will never leave our hearts because he is definitely in mine. Stop there before I cry. Thank you.
Someone taking pictures? Yeah. Oh, Cindy. I gotta have one with you too,
All right. Make it tear off.
Thank you.
next on my list is Ethan Baker, the mayor of Troy.
They're right, they shouldn't clap when we come up. It feels strange, so don't clap for us, clap for Bob. But, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mayor Ethan Baker. Does that help? You hear me back there? Good. I'm really happy to be here, Bob. I can't believe you're leaving, even though I know you're not leaving. We're going to keep you very busy in the city of Troy. But I just want to say quickly, we've got almost all of our Troy City Council here with us today.
And Ellen called me while I was at lunch and said she's up north, but she wished she'd right here.
So if Ellen wasn't up north, we'd have all 7 of us here today on a Sunday afternoon, which tells you something about how we value Bob Cornwall in our community. I know, Bob, what you've done. Whenever Cindy Stewart, our Community Affairs Director, has needed you for something, you are the first person to say, yes, I'll be there. You come and you pray for our veterans at Veterans Day ceremony, Memorial Day ceremonies. You came to my State of the City address. These are the things you do for our community because you care and value this community. And that will be sorely missed. I'm extremely honored that you're wearing your Troy Police Chaplain shirt today for this event. That again tells us something about who you are. I also know my wife is a pastor's daughter, and so my in-laws are a pastor and pastor's wife. And I know how difficult it is because you never have 100% of the people agree with you in whatever way you're leading your
If I could
church.
be a politician.
It is, well, it is very political to be a pastor, but there's no mistaking our community. Codman knows, and she's talked about it, that there's often friction in this community as it relates to some social issues. We are a community full of diversity in faith and places of worship, but those don't always go together very well. But you've got Pastor Bob, who does his best to help bridge that gap, and he's done so much work with the Troy Area Interfaith Group, his alliances against hate and the work he's done in the community that way. And I'm always extremely proud when I drive by here, and I see you've got a pride flag out, you've got a Black Lives Matter flag, but you're also able to communicate and work with everybody in our community, and that you respect them and they respect you. And I know that's not easy as we're dealing with issues in the Bible and Jesus Christ. And so I commend you for that. Let me just say, God has blessed the city of Troy with Pastor Bob Cornwall. And we know you're not going to go too far away, and we're going to keep calling on you. But thank you, Bob. Thank you for all you've done for our community. And again, our whole city council thanks you. We're here for you. And we're going to present a proclamation to you, I think, at an upcoming council meeting. So we look forward to seeing you there. Yeah. Thank you, Bob.
I should just stand up here.
Should we do it? Let's do that.
We'll get a, yeah.
Are you done?
Oh, my backed out.
Moving away from the political.
John, hold the mic back down so we can.
You're not as tall as Ian.
The previous guy was tall. Moving to a different spectrum, I would invite Ed Jesek to come up and say a few words.
Thank you all very much. So I was coming in and the mayor's noticed, hey, you're all meddled up. What's that about? I'm a retired soldier. I served only 22 years, 6 months, and 3 days in the United States Army. That's all.
How many hours?
Anyway, and it's important, there was a great American general by the name of Douglas MacArthur who in his address to West Point observed, "The soldier above all else prays the hardest for peace because he must bear the burden of war." At the Passover Seder, we recount all the great things that God did. We say, Diano, it would have been enough. Bob, Diano, if all you did was serve in California. Bob, Diano, if over the course of your ministry, those young lives that you greeted into your communities, those young couples that you performed services for as they started their lives together, and in the twilight of their lives, the countless numbers of souls you have interned in the clay from which they came. Diana. Then there is your interfaith work. I want to talk a little bit about that. I had the pleasure of following him as a convener of the Troy Area Interfaith. And I want you to think about this in the world stage. We have Muslims, we have Hindus, we have Jews, we have Christians of every flavor, all coming together at least once a month to pray and, more importantly, form those bonds and relationships of peace and friendship and brotherly love that ensure that we can make war a forgotten word in our vocabulary. Diana Bob. And then you become the police chaplain. Diana. There's so many other countless things that you do. Oh, one other important thing. Our coffee clutch. So what happens there is you get a bunch of old men that are suffering from what I call old men disease. And
Wait a minute.
let me defend myself, Padma. Let me defend myself. And Padma. She shows up, and you show up. So you got a bunch of old people that are suffering disease, where they think they are important and can propound upon the great issues, which they do. And we share our experience, strength, and hope. And in doing so, hopefully sets as a benchmark from which we can move forward together. And I apologize to you for forgetting you.
If don't forget Brad.
And Brad. And Ali, wherever you are, God bless you, yes? Yeah. He doesn't suffer from old man disease yet, or old person disease yet, but it's coming. And by the way, mazel tov on your daughter. Diana. This is your legacy. How much greater things will you do in the future? And that is what I want to encourage you for, my friend. Just because this chapter of your life is over, you cannot walk away from the responsibilities that are in front of you. Diana. Shalom, shalom.
Sandy's gonna take a picture. Sandy's at least one person has got a camera.
Was that a holy hug?
And I need all these pictures.
That's why I'm taking it.
I know. Uh-oh.
We are replacing the Facebook camera.
Not wanting to charge?
Yeah. Just change it to a different.
Just skip it, I'll put it on YouTube.
Tell a joke, John.
I don't have any jokes. I didn't know. What?
Bring up your hands. You're
Okay.
Oh, it'll come up on its own.
I even plugged the mic in for you.
Oh, that's even better. So our next speaker, representing the Turkish American Society, with whom we have shared iftar dinners for several years, and who has treated us to some very special baklava. But you have to earn it because you have to listen to everybody else. So I'm going to invite Eunice to come up and speak. And I would pronounce his last name, but I can't.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here on behalf of the Turkish American community here in Michigan. And most of them, they live in Troy. I used to live in Troy too, just a couple of streets down from here. I moved to Ann Arbor a couple of years ago. No hard feelings. I enjoyed Troy quite a bit. Bob has a very special place in Turkish community's heart. He has done a lot, as many of you know. He has done similar things to your communities. He hosted us many times here for iftar dinners, waiting to eat dinner past 9 p.m. It's getting a little bit better now. The days are getting a little bit shorter, so hopefully when we have iftar dinners, it will not be that late. But for Muslims, when retirement is a celebration, so I want to say that first because it's the completion of a task. It is not abandoning a post, but completing a task and feeling good about it. And I'll just use the example of fasting again because we had so many iftar dinners here. And for Muslims, God says there are 2 celebrations, 2 moments of joy after fasting. One is right at that time at the dinner, because when you break your fast after a long day of fasting, it feels good. And also it feels good that you completed the task for the sake of God. And the second moment of joy is when Muslims believe there will be a judgment day, and when facing the God, then there will be another moment of joy there. Again, because of completing a task. So I think retirement is really a big accomplishment to celebrate, completing a task. And all you have done for the Turkish American community, we really appreciate that. And I'm not just saying just building bridges. You really cared about what's going on with Turkish Americans here in Michigan. You put us in touch with many people. Many of you may know that politics in Turkey is a little bit shaky right now. Many things happen to Turkish people here in Michigan too. And Bob took those things very seriously. He reached out to different people to put people in touch with other people to help them locally here. So he means a lot to us, and we really appreciate that. We hope to see you more after retirement. We hope that you will come and visit us more often. You will have more time. And for your wife, my mom, she was first very happy when my dad retired, but then she realized it wasn't the moment of celebration. So we'll keep you busy. All right? All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have fun in the retirement. Thank you.
Okay, got another picture. Thank you, Cindy.
Oh, double shot.
We really ought to have the baklava now. The next speaker is my daughter, and she'll have a few things to say. But because she's my daughter, and because I get to do this, I'm going to let you know why she's speaking today. It's because Bob presided over her ordination as a minister, and so she has a special place in this church's life, and Bob has a very special place in her life. Alex
Well, he already said it all, so I guess Bob.
Go get your picture.
No, I was lucky here at Central Woodward to be blessed with many people telling me throughout my life that I was called to ministry. But I will say, out of all of those people, Bob was the first person to sit me down and say, "Now, what are you going to do about it? Where are you going to seminary? What's your internship look like? You want to intern here? What do you need to know?" He made sure that not only did I hear God's call, but that I was supported in following it, which really, changed the course of my life. And so I'm so grateful for that. And I know that I'm not the only person that you have mentored and supported in that way. And that is part of your legacy. I also know that you not only presided at my ordination, but at my wedding. And that you have been, I know you do not think of yourself as the most gifted pastoral caregiver ever, but you have been a pastoral figure for my family and for me, and so that is also part of your legacy, Bob. I would say as well, as to testimony of all of the other speakers that have come before me, one of the most profound things that I have witnessed and learned from you is that when you stepped into this church, you said, "We're in Troy! We are in Troy!" And you made everybody look outside of the walls of this church and and be in Troy, which was a courageous and prophetic thing to do in Central Woodward Christian Church. And so that is a gift that you taught me, and it is a gift you've given this church. Finally, I want to leave you with a blessing. So will you come up so I can?
Not just for a picture.
Picture. This is a blessing by Meta Herrick Carlson for retirement. So here you go. The time has come for your daily work to change, to let go of titles and trophies, to stop striving and regretting a vocation stuffed into a career. Spread it out now. Unfold it slowly, smoothing the creases. Let it breathe a little and listen beyond the stern voices of responsibility and provision. This calling is less concerned with what and how much, instead asking why and with whom. You have more to share with the world, new expressions of your generous self to discover. This season is a challenge, privilege unfolding since you are still and always becoming.
Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, Matt.
That's my daughter. The next speaker is Carl Zerwick. Carl came to Detroit from Houston on a mission, and we won't let him go. He is the leader of Rippling Hope Ministries, as well as pastor at
St. Paul's United Church of Christ, Disciples of Christ in Dearborn Heights.
There you go. Without any more.
Thank you, John. Well, just a quick minute about Rippling Hope to give you some context. So Rippling Hope is a ministry that in January of this year began our 11th year of witness and service in Detroit, in the west side and northwest side of Detroit. We're a nonprofit organization that focuses on home repairs and building up, revitalizing neighborhoods. We're partners currently with 65 different neighborhood groups in northwest Detroit. And we are here celebrating this 11th year of service because in January of 2011, I had a slight change in my career path. And I had been invited here by Eugene James, who I'm assuming will be speaking shortly. And I came to Detroit, having only been here once when I was a child with my parents on vacation. I came to Detroit at the invitation of Eugene James to talk about what could be. Eugene knew the particular gifts and skills I had in ministry that I've been building and doing habitat-related things and lots of other things like that throughout all of my adult life. And Eugene said, well, there might be some things you could get involved in Detroit. There might be some needs that you could help us meet. So I said, sure, why not? Why don't I make a trip in, late January to Detroit? What a great time to come to Detroit. So I arrived, and the first time I met with a group was with Eugene James and with Bob. And they drove me around and we looked at things, and then I learned that Bob and Eugene had some conversation sometime back in an elevator. I don't remember where that elevator was. Chicago, I think. Chicago, I think.
Yeah, about something about bringing some kind of new ministry into Detroit to help revitalize neighborhoods and communities. And so they shared that with me, and here we are today. And so every day I feel blessed to serve with the people that I serve in Detroit and work with those people. And I especially am blessed because Bob Cornwall
and Eugene James ever took a chance of inviting me to come here. And I give thanks for that. And Bob and this church have been very supportive of the work and ministry of Rippling Hope. And I will tell you that Bob also knows how to paint. He's a pretty, I would say he's a pretty decent painter. In fact, he's always proud to show me at the end of a day when he's come down and volunteered that he has very little paint on him. Which is a lot more than I can say about a lot of our volunteers. So Bob, you're getting lots of invitations to engage in lots of things.
Oh, yeah, I know.
But I always have a paintbrush, a paint tray, paint rollers, and right now, only about 150 people waiting for us to come and paint their houses over the next year. So the invitation is there. Call me, and we'll put you to work, and it'll be good to work alongside of you. And thank you again for the invitation to ever come here.
He's documenting this. You're going to write a book.
No, I know I get to speak, but I was surprised that Carl did not tell you that he has to keep Band-Aids with him at all times when I'm working.
Even when he's painting, he can cut himself.
Bob has this thing to sharp colors. You mentioned Eugene James. Eugene James is the regional minister for the Disciples of Christ denomination in Michigan, at least until he retires in 6 months. And so I would invite Eugene to come up and say a few words.
All right.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's good to see everybody. And I met this guy. You never know who you're going to run into when you climb on an elevator. And indeed, we did meet at a minister's retreat, minister's conference, I should say, in Chicago. And I get on the elevator, and Bob looks at me. I'm supposed to get to know you. Fine. But one thing I like about Bob, he's real. I have encountered so many persons over my lifetime who were phony. The one thing that impressed me about Bob is real. And when he said to me that he wanted to do some mission work in Detroit, I took him at his word. And as Carl has mentioned, things happened. Now, we first started with the computer lab. That was our decision. We didn't talk to anybody in the community. We didn't talk to anybody in the neighborhood. We just decided, yes, we'll do a computer lab. Well,
No computer lab.
the lab was there, but we had not one session. Not one. So when Carl agreed to come to Detroit, then our mission became focused. Bob had made a relationship with Motown Mission, and I was working with Carl with Rippling Hope, and we brought them all together. And as a result of that, he has 150 people waiting for help. Now, I won't venture to ask you how many have you done since you first got here.
Almost 3,000.
Okay, there you go. So that lets you know when real people come together to do real mission, things happen. So I'm proud to say, I met this guy on the elevator, and things happened. So I'm grateful to God for the relationship we have. He's one of the best friends I have. He supported me as I made my journey to become regional minister. He he stood out and proclaimed to folks that I'm his pastor. And I tell folks, he's my pastor. So we have had that relationship, and it's been a blessing to me and a blessing to the region. So we thank God for you, Bob. I love you, and you've only just begun. Yeah, we love each other. Yes.
These tall people. I got to say something about Ripley Hall. One of the missions, primary missions that from my understanding of Ripley Hope, is that they serve as a mission focus, so that typically church-related groups from around the country gather groups of people that contact Ripley Hope, and they bring groups of people to Detroit to go into communities and rehab homes. And not only around the country, but around the state. So that's why that happens. So the 150 people who are waiting to get their houses painted, we'll get them painted. The last speaker for today, so that we can get to the baklava, is Reverend Rick Green. And he's an associate pastor at Central Woodward Christian Church. He is a dear friend of mine and a dear friend of Bob Cornwall. And I think he has a few things to say.
See, I'm short too, so this works fine. Let's see what the problem is. So John gives politicians and preachers and the religious leaders a microphone and say, only be 3 minutes. What's up with that?
It's a test.
It's a test. We all fail the test. I've already made him cry 2 days in a row, so.
Go for third.
Go for 3. Bob has been a lot to me and my family. I told him yesterday, and I will repeat it here. Bob, you're the first straight pastor that has ever embraced my family. That doesn't mean a whole lot to most of you out there, but for some of us, it means a great deal. That means he embraced us with the full love of Christ. Without reservation, without footnote, without saying, do it my way, he embraced us fully. He brought this church to the place of being open and affirming. As he likes to say, and I chastise him for it, it wasn't an easy task. But we have had some new members. We have William joining us, and we have Raphael joining us, and we've had some others that have come through these doors and felt the love of God. No matter what stripe of faith that you practice, Pastor Bob has honored you, and you can hear it from the rabbi, from Padma, from others, about that connection that he makes with people. And unlike most of the people here, I cannot say we're going to put you on the list, because we're prohibited from asking you to do anything for a year. However, I am on the regional board, and I can step out of my Central Woodward role into my regional board role, right? Reverend Eugene? And put him on a list. So he doesn't get totally out of the picture. But I just wanted to say thank you, Bob. On behalf of the congregation here, you're going to be missed terribly. And from what you've heard from your friends and your colleagues today, know that you're going to be missed in this community. And you're not going to get away scot-free. Mayor's got you on this list. Thomas got you on her list. And others as well. So you may retire from this building, but you're far from done doing God's work. And the disciples, we say, we ordain you to ministry of God's church, not this local one. So God's anointing is forever and ever. It doesn't end today, it just starts a new chapter. So I'd like to again say thank you, and you will forever be in my heart. You and Cheryl and Brett mean the world to us at Central Woodward, and specifically to me and my family. Thank you, Bob.
Without Cindy, what would we do?
I don't have anybody else left on the list. But before I turn the microphone over to Bob, I want to point out, Rick was talking about the new members to the church, and he modestly left out his son, who just joined, Richard. I am getting hungry, so I'm going to say a few words.
So they each got 2 minutes to speak about me, which means I get 2 minutes each to respond. So that's 16 minutes. No. Is Brett in the, he's escaped. Cheryl, oh, there he is, I see him, but he's shy. Cheryl, would you come up for a moment? I do. She tries to be behind the scenes, but my partner in all of this, along with Brett. So this is one of those weird days when you know, it's bittersweet. You know, that I'm looking forward to the future, but saying goodbye is difficult because you all, Central Woodward, brought me here, and we're staying.
I'm still at the library.
We assumed that when I retired we'd be heading back west, but they're having drought out there, and we're surrounded by water. Plus we have a really nice house in Troy that we can afford. And so we made the decision to stay here. And the church brought us here. But over the last 13 years, I don't know that I'm truly a Michigander, but I am a resident of Troy.
Do you like burners?
Huh?
Do you like burners?
Sometimes. But the fact that I got all these city council members, and Ellen did call and said that she wasn't able to be here, but she wanted to be here, and we'd have lunch here soon. Rebecca is the one I've gotten to know the most recently, but that they're here on this day says a lot about the connection that over time I've built with the city. And really, you know who you can blame for that is Cindy Stewart. When we first got here, Cheryl and I went to, I don't know why, we went to visit the Community Affairs Director, who has been and always will be Cindy Stewart. And you know, she gave us pointers and gave us stuff, and then she told us who to get for a dentist, and Dr. Sudemir's still our dentist. Come to love Troy. And that you're all here says something about the nature of that relationship. And yeah, they are all planning stuff for me. I don't know what it is, but I'm on the list. Cindy always calls, and so normally on occasions, Ethan sings and I pray. So maybe one of these days.
Switch roles.
Yeah, I sang this morning, so you can watch it on the video. But thank you so much for coming. You are good friends to me, and I love Troy, and
Troy loves you.
and so thank you. I thought you wanted to say something. So that's the city of Troy. Interfaith folks, they're here, and my beloved friends from the Turkish American Society are over here, there, in different places. I said this last week in my sermon that I was involved in interfaith stuff in California. Little did I know how much broader things would be here in Troy. And Padma and Charlotte became my fast friends, and Amin over there was late. Amin's always late, but we're always the last ones to leave. Became beloved friends. And I do hold it against Charlotte that she retired before I did, but so we had plans that she retired. But now I'm retired, so we can work on whatever else. But Padma and where'd Eunice go? He had to take off. Well, Ollie and everyone from Turkish American Society, blessings to you, and I guess we're going to do some stuff together. And Ed, hey, so much fun. This group this interfaith group. I could not believe how diverse this community is, and I just have a lot of fun. Don't be fun. Yeah. Let's see, Regin and Carl and Eugene. Well, hey, we had this idea, Alex and Diana and I and a couple of others, it's like, we should figure out how to build on this relationship that Eugene and I had developed. And then Carl was available and came up, and we took him around and we built this thing, and the rest is history. And I've been blessed. I know Eugene is blessed that took place. Before I came here, I'd really tried to stay away from regional work, regional church life, but that didn't happen here, and I've been pretty much on regional board since the day one. And but most of all, Maggie's back there too. Maggie and Eugene been regional ministers, and John Lacey somewhere there. John Lacey. All the regional ministers I've known here, they're all here, and they drew me in and wouldn't let me leave, and so blessed with that. Let's see. Oh, Alex. Where are you, Alex?
She's in the nursery.
She's in the nursery. So Alex grew up in this church, but then she wanted to be she decided to be in ministry, and we had these conversations. And there are another thing, so as soon as they get out here. So Alex was working with City Year and met this young guy. Come out here. So I got another story to tell. So Alex had a new boyfriend down at City Year, and but then he got a new job with Harriet Tubman's Center, and they needed to start up this community organizing effort. And so Luke made his first visit to a pastor to me. I was his guinea pig. And the Metro Coalition of Congregations came about as a result of that. So not only did I get to preside over Alex's ordination and their wedding, but I got to be part of the founding of the Metro Coalition of Congregations. And my good buddy John Harvey was part of that, and Louise Ott was part of that, was kind of the key group that kind of got that. And this guy named Ben Sandin, who's in Minnesota and heading to California, so John and I are going to go and go to a Giants game with Ben. We were part of that, and so those are part of my life. And none of that would have happened. None of that would have happened. It had this congregation, Tim was the president at the time, not said yes to this guy from California who'd never been to Michigan before my first visit to interview in February. Still came. From Santa Barbara, California. So, I'm a preacher, so I could go on for a while. But I won't, because John wants to eat baklava. But I want to thank you all for coming today and sharing in this. I was thinking about this morning, because the way the question is asked is, what are you going to be doing? And the question really is, who are you now? What's your identity now? I'm part of this group called the Academy of Parish Clergy, and one of the members, he's a retired Baptist minister named Bill Tuck. He's like with his, I did a journal for them, and he always signs his, anything he writes as minister at large. And I thought, you know, that's perfect. A minister at large. I'm Troy, it covers this. I'm a police chaplain. It covers what I do, whatever I do in Troy. It does what I do with Carl. It does when any of my